Hello, my friend, and welcome. I'm Daryl Urbanski, and today I have something special for you. What you're about to hear today isn't part of what we usually do. Today, I'd like to spend some personal time with you and for us to get to know each other better. So, to start, I'll be sharing some of my life stories with you, plus introducing you to some of the grandfathers of my business acumen. In fact, the next few weeks, I'll be introducing you to the grandfathers of my education, plus, you're going to get select never released recordings of people interviewing me where I give some of my best business and life advice ever. We all learn from various people we know for various amounts of time. Some people we share just a single impactful moment together, others, a full weekend. And some of us have people in our lives who have always been there, always guiding us, and always sharing our paths. Well, I would like to share some of these people who have guided me with you. Your life really can change based on the things you learn and the people you meet. So please enjoy this special series of classic and never released recordings in this 10-part interview series. Enjoy. All right, hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Daryl Urbanski, and today I have got a phenomenal guest for you guys. It's very much an honor for me to be kind of having the shoe on the other foot and having a chance to interview him. Today, our guest is Ken McCarthy, a man many tout to be the godfather of internet marketing. He's definitely been a mentor and someone that I hold in high esteem myself. But back in 1994, he put on the very first internet marketing seminar with Mark, was it Andreessen, the man who created Netscape, the world's first internet browser. And since then, Ken and his system seminars continue to just really be a pioneer in the internet marketing industry. Pretty much anyone you know who's a name in the IM space has come through Ken's camp at some point. And not only that, but he's influenced huge things that right now we take for granted, like the banner ad. I think that was what was it was Rick. What's Rick's last name? Ken.
Rick
Boyce,
Boyce.
Rick Boyce, he's touted as having invented the banner ad, but he gives Ken credit for even inspiring him to what was possible, and in fact that he came up with it, I think, at one of your system seminars. So just from direct response marketing to database marketing to the internet and traffic and conversion, Ken really is a pioneer, and he is someone that so many of us owe our careers and just having been helped along the way. So many of us owe Ken our deepest gratitude. So, Ken, thank you very much for joining me on the call today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Yeah.
It's great to be interviewed.
Yeah, you're always interviewing other people. It's been years and years with the System Club, so it's probably been a while since anyone's interviewed you, eh?
Yeah, I love the interview process. I think it's a great way to get good information, extract good information that otherwise might not get out.
Yeah, and you're so good at that too. I mean, that was something I've been through your archive over and over and over, and it just amazed me the caliber of people you managed to connect with. And then exactly that, you were just really good with asking deep and probing questions. And like, what did you like? How did you even get started in that? What were you doing before you started getting involved in the online marketing world?
Oh, me? Boy, it's been so long. It's now 21 years. Um, but going in, let's see, starting maybe maybe starting from the beginning. My first taste of marketing was a really simple thing. It was just getting more girls to come to our school high school dances.
That's very
And
passionate.
yeah, there was probably never a time when was more motivated to succeed with a marketing program. Um, and I went to an all boys Catholic school. There are such things, and so the need to get girls to come to our dances was huge.
Right, of
And
course.
I quickly did some demographic studies. Didn't know what that meant, and didn't know I was doing it. And quickly discovered, wow, there's a lot of all girls Catholic high schools in New York City. And so I just had my friends get together. We made posters, and you go to St. John Baptiste, you go to St. Mary's, and we we put up the posters, and the girls came.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
we went from having like a 1-to-2 ratio against us, two
Right?
guys for every girl, which I'm telling you is a horrible thing,
Yep.
to 3-to-1 in our favor, three girls for every guy, which I'll tell you is a great
Great
thing.
thing, yes.
That is awesome. Yeah. No, I used to do security at nightclubs when I was 19 as a side thing, just to make money. I hung out with my friends. We could always tell if it was going to be an easy or a rough night, depending on the girl to guy ratio. So I know exactly what
The
you're
girl
talking
to guy
about.
ratio. So
Um,
Yeah,
excellent.
that's a very lucrative business, by the way, the nightclub business, if you catch it right.
Really, eh?
Um,
Yeah.
of course you do have a lot of expenses like big security guys to keep
Yeah.
things straight.
So what did you do after that? After you got really good with filling dances with pretty girls, how did your marketing career progress? How did you sharpen your
Well,
teeth and get
the, the,
involved?
the next bit of marketing I did, and this is still while I was in school, this was when I was in college, was promote concerts. And I'm a big jazz
Hmm.
fan, have been, since I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to bring jazz musicians to my campus. And jazz was not really popular in the '70s, late '70s when I was in college. It was it looked like it was about to disappear to zero. But I didn't care. I loved it. And so I'd bring guys down. But, there's expenses. You had
Mm-hmm.
to rent the hall, you had to um, get
Mm-hmm.
equipment, rent. Sometimes I had to rent a good piano for the good players.
Hmm.
And so it was risky, but I just applied my marketing experience from high school, and it was the same process. It's like, well, the show's going to start at 8, and there's no fooling around. You've either sold these tickets or you haven't, and that is a tremendous discipline. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have $1,000 in 1970,
Yep.
$7.
Yeah, and
No,
over.
excuse me, was it? Yeah, it's late '70s. That was pretty big money. That's probably the equivalent of $5,000 today, believe it or not.
Wow.
Well, you could go to college. You could go to the best universities in the United States for 8,000 a year. Now they cost 40 to 50 a year. So
Right.
there's been a bit of inflation. So anyway, $1,000 was a lot of money, and if I failed, it was going to really hurt. So I made sure I didn't fail. So
And
I always say to people that live event promotion is a great way to cut your teeth because there's no hiding. You've either filled the seats or you haven't.
That's such a good, that's really good. That's a powerful lesson because I think you're right. I think especially in this day and age, it's easy for people to hide behind their computer screens. And I know for myself as well that exactly once you said that, I was like, yeah, if I were promoting more live events. In fact, there was a couple of projects that I didn't want the pressure of promoting a live event because I was doing evergreen stuff. And for me, it's just easier to work with an evergreen thing. And as long as, you're at a net profit, there's not that intense like that fire, that deadline coming at you. So that's a really powerful point.
Yeah,
How did
if I can say this, I mean, live events are tough. They're tough to promote. They're tough to manage. Uh, it's definitely not easy. And yeah, if you can do it without that kind of pressure, the value of live events too is it creates deadlines.
deadlines? Yeah.
It helps you as a marketer
Yep.
because people can't say, well, I'll come to the concert tomorrow. Well, no, the
Mm-hmm.
concert's tonight. It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's the scarcity. There's money
Yep.
scarcity. There's also time scarcity. But yeah, I love evergreen stuff. We don't need more pressure and stress in our lives. So if you can get around it, I think it's a good thing.
Well, and that's one of the things though, like you're right, evergreen stuff is great and all that, but it's one of the things that I've really valued is you've been such a portal into the history of this industry, the history of marketing, and there's so many powerful lessons to be learned from understanding how things have evolved and understanding the lessons. And so even though now we live in a world where maybe like, the whole live event deadline, like now instead of having to be at a physical place, we can do it online and hey, if you missed it, I can send you the replay and there's a lot of convenience there for us. But I mean, it in some ways it can make you lazy. It can instead of enhancing your skills, it can dampen them.
Well,
So
I mean, you're a martial artist, and you get instant feedback when you're in the ring.
right,
You can't go in there and imagine that you did well when you didn't.
right,
You're
right,
pinned.
right. No, exactly.
Actually,
Yeah.
what I mean? And before the internet, that was marketing. For instance, direct mail, which I did a lot of. Um, you're writing $5,000, $10,000 checks to put out a mailing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's on the low end, right?
Yep.
And you don't know that money's going to come back. Um,
Mm,
and you're only sending maybe you know if you're lucky, maybe you're sending 1,000 pieces in the mail,
Mm,
or 500 pieces in the mail for. I mean, so I'm sorry, for $10,000, you might be sending only 10,000 pieces of mail,
right.
or slightly more. Right now, in fact, already this morning, I've sent out, oh my God, over 100,000 pieces of email. I do that every day. It costs me nothing.
Yep.
If I get it wrong, it's like I don't lose any sleep over it. What's the difference?
Right.
Um,
Right.
by the way, I'm not a spammer. Just anybody thinks I just happen to have a lot of businesses, and we have a lot of subscribers that
Yep.
we signed up for daily mailings.
Yep.
We have one list of we have one list of 45,000. We have another one of, where are we on that one? 35,000. We have another list of 15. And then we have some minor lists. So it adds up to a twice. Some of these guys get mail twice a day. So it's well over. I'm sending well over 100,000 pieces of mail every day, which in the old physical world would have been like,
It would have been a huge operation,
oh my God, you'd
and
have to have a cast of thousands just to get the envelope stuffed and
yep.
mail delivered to the post office.
And any sort of mistake, like now, like a link being broken, like an order form not being included, could have had huge repercussions on your business.
Oh, yeah, and all kinds of crazy things happen in the mail. For example, you weigh your mail. The postage is dependent on the weight,
Hmm.
and you weigh your mail when it's dry, and then you're transporting it on a sort of a humid day to the post office. The paper absorbs water slightly and it can be just enough to put you over the edge. And you bring 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 if you're a big mailer, or 100,000 pieces of mail, and the postman says, "Oh no, this is not 32 cents. This is 48 cents."
Yeah.
Well, you're dead.
Yeah.
So it was just a very it was tough, and so it did make you very disciplined. It made you very focused.
Hmm. Now, how does that translate into the online world? That discipline and that focus and the lessons that you've learned and how you've seen them applied. I mean, what has been the kind of the what do you think are one of the main things that hold people back, or what do you think held you back even in your early days of internet marketing? Some of the breakthroughs that you've had and you've coached so many other people through in their careers. So when you talk about the discipline and the focus, how does that translate into marketing online, or even just marketing in this day and age? What is
That's a really good question. Let me tell you, let me start with what I think, and you alluded to this early in the call, which is uh, studying the history of marketing and studying it widely. And I think this is the biggest problem that new or even intermediate internet marketers have. I think most advanced internet marketers get this, but I think beginners definitely don't get this. And there's a lot of people that even are intermediate that don't get it, which is, you cannot get all your marketing knowledge from whoever the current flavor of the day internet marketing guru is. That is a very narrow band, very narrow, limited spectrum of information. For instance, you hear, oh well, let's do the triple somersault method. Oh my God, it's the best. The guy made 1 million in a day. Oh my, this is it. And so
right?
everybody's flocking to the triple somersault method, and we're crushing it, and all this stuff.
Right.
And basically, what you're learning for your $1,000 or your $10,000 or your $25,000 mastermind program is one very narrow little method. And it's kind of like a guy that's never seen a car before, and
Hmm.
somebody comes to his village in the jungle and shows him a hubcap,
Right.
and they're like, "Oh my God, wow, oh, what is this thing? It's silver. It's got it shines. It rolls. Oh my God, it's just amazing."
Hmm.
No, no, no. You need four of them, and you need four tires, and you need axles, and you need transmission, and you need a steering wheel, and you need seats, and you need a car body, and you need an engine, and you need a carburetor, and on it goes.
Right. It's not
Um,
that simple. You're right.
yeah, and so I think a lot of people are getting swept up in these promotions uh, for things that they're interesting, they're valuable, they're good to know, but it's only just a narrow slice of the puzzle. And the irony is all the really good, deep stuff that you need to be a serious marketer is available at pretty low cost. But you've got to do the work. It's not, no one's going to entertain you. And I think this is it's part of the, people are very inclined to want to be entertained, as opposed to taking out a shovel and doing some of the digging themselves. And they pay a huge price for that, not only in money but in getting a narrow perspective. I can't tell you the number of people that I met. For instance, you and I were at this amazing conference just a few weeks ago.
Yep.
With Dan Kennedy, with Jay Abraham, with Greg Renker of the Gunthy Renker infomercial powerhouse.
Yeah.
Just top gun guys.
Yeah.
And I ran into so many people that said, "Oh well, I don't want to. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll just. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to do my launch. I'm gearing up everything for the launch." And it's like, what are you talking about? There's 10,000 things you can do right now to expand your business and to put your business on a firm footing and get more sales and grow your expand your reach and all this kind of stuff. And you're obsessed with this one heavily promoted, interesting, but why are you putting your business on hold while you're waiting to get the latest secrets of the latest doohickey? It's like, dude, you don't need to wait. There's 10,000 things you can do right now today without having to go. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to discourage anybody from going to a seminar or buying more information. I mean, it's all good, but be selective. Business is buying and selling, right? That's the bottom line.
Yep.
So as internet marketers, we're buying traffic one way or another, either through our efforts or through literally buying the traffic, and then we're converting that traffic to more valuable customers.
Yep.
Well, the same thing comes with your information too. You got to, there's books for $20 that are functionally worth $100,000, and there are programs that are like $25,000 that are probably worth $20.
Yep. Yep. No, and it's so true. And sometimes people will pay so much more just to get that same information in a different format. So you said that before, and I believe it so much that buying someone's book is probably one of the best investments you can make, because there's just so much value and content in a book. And people gloss that over, and a lot of people, like you said, they'll want to drop the $25,000 for the direct access to the person that, maybe that can be real benefit to you, but for a lot of people, they should have just started with the book.
Yeah, you gotta know where you're at, and I started with no money. In fact, I started with less than no money, and so I did, and luckily, there wasn't anything that these big programs weren't around, so it was like you had to do your own research, you had to do your own thinking. I'll tell people till the cows come home that one of the best books they could ever possibly get is John Capel's Tested Advertising Methods, 4th edition or earlier. Don't get the new 5th edition; it's terrible. But that book, which you can usually get for about $20, now that I've been telling people over the years to get the 4th edition, those 4th editions are starting to really disappear. But that book is worth $100,000. I'm just going to tell you. But you got to get it. You got to read it. You got to know John Caples is not going to appear in a hologram in your living room and give you a seminar on his work, because he's dead. And he also was not in the seminar business. He was in the business of writing amazing ads and making gazillions of dollars.
Yep. Yeah, I always tell people that the book you don't own, you can't read, and the book you don't read can't help you. So that's exactly right.
And you know what? There's a program. Let me see if I can find it. It's close by.
Sure.
Sometimes, reading, I interestingly enough, I had a business that taught speed reading and study skills years ago, and I had a chance to really observe people's reading over many, a lot of people's reading over many years. And you know what? Reading can be tiring. There's a physical component to it, and some people actually have reading problems, which no shame. It's just there's some physical things related to the way the eyes move that some people have trouble with. Believe it or not.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother hour. But but there's a program that I use. I got on my iPhone called Voice Dream. And if you can somehow get a PDF version of a book, and I think you can get, you can convert things to PDF. There's all methods to do that.
Yep.
And then what you do is you download your PDF into this voice stream app, and an electronic voice reads the book to you.
Really, I like that.
Yeah. So sometimes when I'm really tired and I'm not tired enough to go to sleep, but I still want to accomplish something,
Yep.
I'll just turn this thing on and have somebody read a book to me. You don't have to wait around for the audiobook or
Yeah,
pay
you just
for.
upload your PDF and away you go. That is
Yeah.
brilliant, and that's called Voice Dream. I like
Voice
that.
Dream. Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
I think it was originally designed to help blind people.
Really?
Um, and then they discovered it really helps kids who have reading problems, because one of the things it does is it shows the screen, and then a yellow highlighter highlights each word as it's being read.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. That'd be very, very handy. So, so now let's apply this in here. So speed reading and now voice dream trying to help you enhance your learning. Like how? So obviously learning is a huge component to being successful in our businesses and online. Is that something that you felt ever held you back? Is that something you feel holds a lot of people back that they don't know the right things to do? Is it a lack of education? Is it a lack of resources? Is it a lack of a support network? Like even for yourself, what was your greatest challenge in your business and how did you overcome it?
Okay, good question. Um,
Well, there's like two questions in there, three.
yeah, yeah. I'll always say this too. No matter what's going on in your life, your biggest challenge is you. You know,
Hmm.
and I've had legitimate external problems. I had a massive injury to my spine that it's really made life hard for me for about 5 years. I mean, that was external, and but you know what? The big problem was me and how I responded to it and dealing with it and getting my psychology adjusted to the situation, and that ultimately was my biggest problem. Not what happened or what my conditions are, but me. And I think that's the
Hmm.
very first thing everybody should take note of. Yeah, things happen and the conditions are rarely optimal. Um, so you just got to deal with it. I heard this great thing too, which is it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility.
Got it. I like
It's
that.
like it's gonna, you may not have had anything to do with the bad situation that you're in, but it's entirely your responsibility to get yourself out of it. And another thing that I would use as a guiding principle is something from Earl Nightingale, which is everybody has problems. Uh, the difference is successful people solve their problems.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know what problems you're facing, our listeners or you, Daryl or me,
Hmm.
I mean, I know what problems I'm facing. But I do know that's the game. The ultimate game here is solving problems. Uh,
Right.
and that is this core psychology is it. It's very interesting. I was just speaking of voice dream. I was listening to the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin last night.
Hmm.
Um, 90% of which is boring as hell. I got to tell you, he's like talking about stuff I just couldn't care about. But what is so amazing is when he was recounting his early life, he talked about specific books he read, the impact they had on his life, and then the other thing he talked about was the people that he met with whom he could have good conversations. And
Hmm.
it was a feedback loop. All right. The more he read, the more he had to share in conversation, and the higher level of conversation he could have, and the higher level of people he could interact with. You know,
Right.
if you don't, if you come into the banquet with empty hands, people will feed you. I guess they'll throw you a bone, but there's not much they can do with you.
Right.
But if you bring stuff to the banquet, that's a big help. So
Yeah.
reading, yeah, right.
No, yeah, it's so profound what you just said because when you said it, I went on my own little visual like flashback to my life and my experiences. So I just want to repeat that again. It's just what you're saying about the books that he read and the people that he was able to speak with and converse with and how the knowledge he gained would fuel the circles he would be in and the conversations he would be able to contribute with, and just this almost this virtuous cycle of education and surrounding yourself with a particular type of person, which fuels your education, which fuels why you're around those people. And of course it's all kind of centered around, I guess, your day-to-day life, your business, your how you're providing value to the world. Um, that's really profound. I mean, that's encapsulating kind of a few different things. I mean, when we were at, I think Gary Bencivenga, when we were at that conference, said, was it him? I don't know who it was, but just said that, no, it wasn't. It was someone, I think Brian told me this quote Dick Benson had said, that it's like the man with the most knowledge, what was it? The man with the most knowledge who puts in the most hours wins every time. It was something like that.
That was
It's like,
Marty. I think that was Marty. Marty.
was that Marty? It might have been
Yeah.
Marty.
And Marty, let's look at Marty. What did he do? He started a business on his kitchen table, I think with $10,000. I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't a lot of money. And that business, cranks out over $100 million a year every year, like
Hmm.
clockwork.
Yep.
And here's the issue. How did he get there? He did two things. Besides the fact he worked hard, he read everything he could, and he reached out and met and interacted with and networked with the smartest people he can find. In fact, he had a really great saying, which is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right, right, right.
But we have to be careful, and I'm kind of going to go off on this theme here. We have to be careful. There's, on the one hand, there's educators, and on the other hand, there's, I don't know what to call them, let's just call them promoters. And of course, educators have to promote too. I'm not saying that it's bad to promote education. That's not what I'm saying. But there is, and you have to be sensitive to this and aware of this and hip to this. There's a lot of people teaching internet marketing who don't really care whether you get smarter or not. They do care that you buy their super expensive package, whatever
Right.
that package might be. And what you need to suss out who are the real educators. And here's the sign. The real educators acknowledge other real educators. In other words, they're
Mm,
not caught in this little tight circle.
hmm.
For instance, we have no problem talking about Gary Bencivenga and John Caples and Marty Edelston and great internet marketers that we know. Like, if somebody's good, we'll talk about them. We're not going to,
Yeah,
but
of course.
but I was actually on an interview years ago, and before the interview started, the guy said, "Is it okay if I mention John Caples?" And I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, not only is it okay, we should mention John
Yeah,
Caples.
why wouldn't you? Right.
But he said, "Oh, because here's what he said. Everybody, listen now. This is really important." He says, "Because most of the internet gurus I interview don't want me to talk about anybody other than them and their circle of friends."
Mm,
Okay, so if you're trying to figure out who's for real and who's not for real,
yep.
who's talking about John Caples? Who's talking about Claude Hopkins? Who's talking about a wide spectrum of internet marketers? Um, that's on the one side. Those are the educators. And then the other side, there's the guys that only talk about themselves and their tight little 3 or 4 person clique.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Right.
when you see that, your alarm bells should be going off.
Yep.
That's my opinion. And this is, I tell you, the big hazard for beginners is, you're in a dark woods and there's all kinds of paths to take, and you don't know which path to take, and your choice as to what kind of person to follow is going to make a huge difference in your outcome. And I don't know, this is sort of becoming the theme of this call, but I think, if you really want to know where people get tripped up, I'd say they get involved in, idol worship,
Yep.
and they get linked into certain personalities, and they think, oh, I'm it, I'm cool because I'm with these guys. And you know what? None of us are cool.
Yeah.
We're either educated or we're not educated. If we're educated broadly and widely, we have a good chance of making good decisions. If we're you know caught in a little circle, no good, no good. So the way out is, we've already talked about it, reading as widely as you can about marketing in general.
Hmm.
And I put up a post on my blog about a guy that wrote a cookbook and now has a bunch of restaurants in Chicago. And it's like, what does that have to do with internet marketing? And I'm like, study what he did.
Hmm.
It applies to everything. If you're an info marketer, you should know this guy's story, because there's inspiration in it, but
Right.
there's also principles in it that you can draw from. So read widely, and then don't just sit in your room reading. Once you feel you have something to contribute, reach out, you know, to other marketers, and build your own network of marketers. I guess the thing is, don't be a passive audience member. I guess that's what I'm. Now, obviously, when I go to a conference, I sit in the audience and I listen. I don't, run around and
Right.
try to be, but in general, don't be a passive guy that just pays the money and sits in the audience and
Well,
praises the guru. Um, be your own guy and learn your own, read your own books,
yep.
and build
Apply
your,
it.
yeah.
Apply it, because that's mentioning martial arts. That's exactly what I feel like. I used to have a lot of people that would want to come when I had my martial arts school. They'd want to come and participate in the class. They'd want to learn the lesson, but then they would like, oh well, I had something to do. I just want to come, and I didn't want to. They didn't want to miss the lesson, but they would skip the drilling. Like they would like leave class early. Essentially, they'd show up, see what I was going to teach, and then leave. And I'm like, what? But what are you doing? Like that's the most valuable part, Or even when I'd show somebody something and it was like a three-step move, often people would be like, "Is this it?" And I'm like, "How many times have you done it?" They're like, "Twice." I'm like, do it 10 more times, then ask me if you're doing it right, because I can sit here and explain to you all day, every day, but it's only 3 steps. Do you know what I mean? And you know the 3 steps, so just go through it 10 times, 12, 15 times, then call me over, and then I'll help you. So I think that's really valid. I think there's a lot of people that get caught up in just consuming, 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 and never producing anything with what they've learned.
That's a really, really good point. And if we were to break this down, it's like a stool. You want to sit down on something that doesn't collapse. A one-legged stool, not good. Two-legged stool, not good. You need at least 3 legs, and those legs are learning, doing your own studying, uh, networking,
Hmm.
talking with other practitioners, which is really an important thing. And then 3, doing, obviously,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and you can diagnose anybody's condition really quickly by looking at those 3 legs.
Mm.
Some guy may be doing all this stuff, but he's not doing any research. So he's wasting time, he's wasting energy, he's wasting money that he could have easily conserved by just having a little learning under his belt. Then you might have somebody else that has every book and every tape set in the world, but he hasn't applied anything. Um, and then you also have guys that maybe, they're knowledgeable and they're doing a lot of stuff, but they're not taking advantage of networking. By networking, I just mean meeting people and talking with people and making alliances. Not everybody's going to be responsive, not everybody's going to be receptive, but you should always be looking to build your circle of marketing friends, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, people that are doing what you're trying to do. That's such a powerful component. Jim Rohn has that quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And for me, that's just it's been critical. I mean, sure I've done a lot of the reading and the education, but just again being introduced to you, who I was introduced to by Lloyd, and just like you say, just surrounding myself, getting involved, hopping on the calls, um, volunteering, trying to help people where I can. But I want to come back and talk about some more of like your experience and kind of how you've seen things evolved, where you think things are going in the future as far as the industry goes, and then talk a little bit about what you're doing now as well.
Okay. Uh, Before that, you said something that's really important, volunteering. When you're a beginner and you don't know anything, or you don't have any experience, there's absolutely nothing wrong with helping people for free.
Yeah.
And I actually still do that. Sometimes, the amount of effort it's going to take for me to explain why somebody should pay me a lot of money for my knowledge, they're never going to get it. So I just help them.
Mm.
But anyway, if you're a beginner, yeah. And here's the other thing too, and I don't feel that you're going to monetize 100% of your effort, like that every breath you take is going to be monetized. That's a really backward, and I know people teach that, and I think it's a really backwards view of things. What really happens is you do a ton of stuff, you create a ton of value in the world, and you monetize a part of it.
Mm.
That's what really happens. So I think I want to stick to these basic things for a second, then I'll be happy to tell things about my story.
Yeah.
But I think this is really important for beginners, intermediate, advanced, everybody, because we all forget this lesson. You don't get one to one. I give, I get, I give, I get, I give, I get. Brian talked about that actually at the Titans conference. I think it was really profound. You just give, 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 give. Sometimes it's going to go into a black hole and you're never going to see it again. Sometimes you're going to get a very, maybe a very minimal return. Sometimes you'll get an equivalent return. Sometimes you'll get a triple grand slam, return that so huge you can't even imagine. And so the key is not being miserly and just I'm going to give a little effort. I'm going to give the least. There's an ethic in the bad side of internet marketing of do the least you can possibly do to get the biggest possible result. Now, I believe in efficiency and I believe in not wasting effort. And certainly there are times when you can do something very efficiently and get a huge return. But psychologically and energetically and the way you look at the world, you really got to think about being a producer and creating and making and trying and reaching out like with high energy, as high energy as you can manage.
Right.
And if you're sitting there waiting for the return on every single bit of exertion you put out, you will never get anywhere. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I don't think anybody's ever just laid it out for people, that basic fact of life.
No, I think you're right. And I think that that's part of what when people ask like when I get questions about my progress and development, I really do contribute that to a lot of it. Just networking with people. I remember as soon as I came back after the last system seminar where I met you, I got in touch with as many people from that conference as I could, and a lot of those people it'd be Friday night, and instead of going out partying, I would be on the phone talking with them about their project, just volunteering to try and help them figure out a solution, or just helping them SEO their YouTube video links. But just like you said, just getting involved and just basically offering my services for free just to get that experience. And you're right, because when you give, a lot of people, you said this on a call, and it was really profound for me. And you're saying that when a musician or a band has the opportunity to have a song played on a national radio station, they don't pick like their second best song and keep the first one buried on the album for people to find later. They take their best stuff and they just give it away for free in hopes that enough people really resonate and connect with them that they go, and then those people seek out the rest of their content. And the rest of their content is great too, and of course it's really enjoyable, right? But that best thing, that's like the big hook, the big fish. And even when you're talking about giving now, that's almost what I feel like. If you don't give, people don't know what you're capable of. And so how do they know what, because a lot of times, especially in this field, when people want to pay you, it's because they want to recruit you and your skills and your abilities and what you know into their project, their task, right? Their endeavor. But if they've never seen you flex that muscle, then it's just a lot of promises. It's a lot of hype.
Yep.
And so I just feel that was really profound.
This is important stuff because look, all the technical stuff, it's out there. How to write a good email, how to write a good headline, how to set up a follow-up sequence. You can buy that information pretty readily, and it's good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out there that covers all the mechanics. You want to go into CPA marketing. There's great material on that. You want to do video whatever it is you want to do, whatever direction you want to do, the technical details are out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is available if you're crafty. A lot of it is available, at a reasonable cost.
Right.
But these core philosophical, attitudinal, energetic attitudes are the thing that is often missing. There's taking another example from the music industry. No band, including the Rolling Stones, including U2, starts playing to sports arenas. And in fact, I have a great interview, which I'm thinking of releasing this thing. It's been a System Club member only thing, but I'm thinking of putting it out to the world because it's just too good to hide. Martin Atkins, he played with Johnny Rotten. He's a very well-known punk rock drummer who's now on the business side of the music industry, and he recounts the story of the first time he saw U2. They were playing to 17 people in a third tier bar in a third tier city on the wrong side of the tracks. Now they could have said, well, gee, we don't really want to put our energy into this because it's, but no, when you're in the music business, every show, whether one guy shows up or 100,000 people show up, you give it your all.
Right.
And this is critical. This is a critical concept, and you want to apply it to marketing. I kind of straddle in some ways both worlds of entrepreneurial internet marketing. and then also, the sort of the Silicon Valley startup stuff, which, is another world. And, that's actually where I really got started. I knew the Yahoo people when there was just four of them. I knew, seriously, literally,
Yep.
literally.
Yep.
I mean, in fact, I still think it's so crazy. Your first impressions are lasting. I still think of those as, young guys just trying to figure it out. Um, I knew Netscape when it was eight guys. When, gee, I didn't think, they were going to make it.
Yep.
Uh, they ended up with thousands of employees and sold themselves to AOL for, hundreds of millions of dollars. But what I want to, so I'm constantly paying attention to what those guys are doing. It's a different business model than we have, and it's a different way of doing business in some specific particular ways. But I heard a really good talk, and I wish I could remember the guy's name because I'd love to give credit where credit's due, but I'm drawing a blank. But he made a really, really good point. He goes, look, when we all go to school, and when you're in school, what do you have to do to succeed in school? Well, you show up. That's step one. You stay awake or at least appear awake during classes,
Right.
right? You cram the night before the test,
Right.
and throw out all this information on the exam, and then of course you forgot it 2 days later. Doesn't matter whether you apply it or not because everything's intellectual, everything's theoretical,
Right.
and if you do all that, you'll get A's and B's, and everybody will pat you on the back. And of course, the thing is to do as little as possible. Um, and everybody will pat you on the back. You might even get a certificate. You'll get a diploma. Everybody will be happy with you.
Right.
That is the worst possible training and condition for the entrepreneurial world. The entrepreneurial world is combat. I mean, and that's why I love, when Lloyd Irvin showed up at one of my classes way back in 2004, I was thrilled. I guess everybody knows who Lloyd is. If not, twice world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, U.S. champion judo, U.S. champion Russian.
Sambo. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
such a scary dude. He's such a
I know, right? Trainer of champions, and I was so happy when he showed up because, I, you know, certain fields like martial arts, like stock trading, there's some other ones. You just can't pretend that you're successful when you're not,
right.
um, and it's brutal. The feedback is rapid and it's brutal. If you go in there unprepared, you're going to get your head handed to you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to scare people away, but that's the game we're playing in marketing. This is not playtime. This is not a little theoretical exercise where you dabble a little bit, you try a few things and maybe they work, maybe they don't. This is all out war. And I'm not talking about, war, in the sense of blowing things up,
No.
but the kind of focus and exertion and all out energy you need to put in to build a business. And, the legs of building the business are number one, having a great product. This is not mentioned enough in our internet marketing world. In fact, there are certain gurus that flat out explicitly tell their students, don't worry about your product.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is the worst possible advice you could ever give anybody. And, it's very popular advice. It sounds great. It's like, oh, I don't have to worry. I can just throw up any old crap and it'll be great. Really, really bad advice. Product quality. And now we'll get into some of the lessons I learned that may be unique to me. Product quality is a marketing amplifier. All right. What do I mean by that? Well, you put out a certain amount of energy to market a product. If your product is crap, you're going to get a lot of returns.
And complaints.
Which means you've lost money, but you've also burned potential customers.
Right.
Those that don't return your product.
Now hold on, Ken. I want to expand on that. You said right. So if the product's not good, you'll get a bunch of returns, and you'll also have burned potential customers. I just want to highlight that just because they bought your product doesn't mean that it's over. What you're killing is all the future sales you could be making off all the other products and services you develop.
Right, and this is what you just said is absolutely critical. Marketing is not about selling; it's about continuing after the first sale.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's the game.
And that's why even if you don't have an ethical bone in your body, it makes sense that you would want to have good quality products because that's what's going to lead people to buying more of your stuff, and all the money is in the back end. So, sorry, I just wanted to interject there because we glazed over that. But for some of the people listening that are new, they may not understand that deep, profound importance to that. Um,
What you're really trying to do, and this comes from the old mail order people and the old direct response advertising people, but it absolutely applies to the internet too, is what you're really doing is you're acquiring customers. Think of a customer, if as a money making machine, right? It's a little machine that makes money, right? If you could acquire a money making machine, the more money making machines you could acquire, the better, right? And the longer those machines run without breaking down or totally going out of commission, the better.
right.
You know? So, I mean, if you want to, yeah, right. If you want to take all the ethics out of it and just be cold blooded, the rational thing to do is to have a good product so that people will be encouraged to, first of all, to keep the product.
Right.
Second of all, to buy your next product and your next product and your next product. There's also another element to this, and this is something that I talked about in my article on the cookbook author that became the restaurant owner. If you do really, 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 really well on your product, you're going to get a lot of free advertising. Well, number one, people are going to tell their friends. Then you go, wow, I just got this book. It was amazing. Or I just went to this teleseminar. It was awesome. People love to brag about good stuff that they've acquired.
Mhm.
Um, you know, they're not going to brag about, yeah, I bought this thing and it's crap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so so you get returns. And there are people that just think, oh, who cares? They have, there's a terrible phrase in certain elements of business called churn 'em and burn 'em. Uh,
Mm.
and the philosophy there is, oh, well, there's so many people out there, it doesn't really matter. Just
Such a,
keep churning them.
that's such a bad perspective. Yeah.
And you've got to be careful. And then we've talked about this already on this call, but I just there are different cultures in marketing. There's a churn 'em and burn 'em culture. These guys tend to think they're hot shit, and they're gunslingers, and they're just so cool, and they don't care, and it's all about the money, right?
Yep.
And then but the other side of marketing is, no, marketing is a part of business, and business is bringing value to people at a profit. Uh, so so if you have a good product, not only will people tell other people, but important people in that niche will support you spontaneously. And since I've referenced this article a couple of times, let me go into the details. So this is a really important lesson. Everybody wants to be an info marketer, and there's a lot of good reasons to be an info marketer. I'm an info marketer. It's a great business. But people misunderstand it. They think it's about cutting and pasting some ebook together and buying some ads, and it's not about that. It's about having really good information and then packaging it well. And here's how far it can take you if you do it right. There's a guy named Rick Bayless, and he did something very unlikely to succeed in the 80s. He went down to Mexico with his wife, spent 6 years learning all about Mexican cuisine. Now, there was nothing less likely to produce financial success than that adventure that they took. I mean, especially in those days. Now, people are more hip to good food, and there are more foodies around, and there's a whole food culture. But I'm telling you, in the 80s, it was all Chinese food. Nobody cared. There wasn't any of this Thai and this, Thai food, and
Right.
just didn't exist. People, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe some Mexican spaghetti. That's it. That's about as sophisticated as Americans were as far as food was in the 80s. And then, of course, Mexico, much very wrongly, doesn't have a very high reputation in the United States. So to go to Mexico and learn the cuisine of Mexico in the 1980s and spend 6 years doing that, insane. Just the
Insane.
dumbest
Right.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But what they did was they wrote an amazing book. And it was so amazing that the top food critic of the New York Times said, "This is a great book. Everybody, stop what you're doing, go out and buy it." And here's the key: that never would have happened if they'd done a cut and paste crap ebook.
Right. Right.
Now, I'm not saying go to Mexico and spend 6 years studying an esoteric thing that nobody is interested in today. But what I am saying is, if you want a tall building, you need a deep foundation. If you want to make a lot of money, you're going to have to dig a deep foundation. Don't think you can cut and paste crap and do some little scammy things. and the money's going to come in, and it's going to be great money. You'll get a trickle,
Yep.
and it will trickle out, and it will go to nowhere.
Dry up.
You're so much better off doing something of quality. So that's one. I really feel that 90% of what I talk about is when people get taken up by cults,
Yep.
and they get and the families hire a cult deprogrammer.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's funny because I've been trying to think of his name because when I was at a different event last week, and one of the guys there, he said it so well. We were having dinner at the sushi place, and he said he attributes all of his success to his skill set, his mindset, and his environment. And he said those are the three things. And so, just exactly, you're right. The mindset is so important. A lot of these people, they're selling like you can buy a box of tricks, and the tactics, and that's something I picked up from Dan Kennedy. He said the principles never change, the strategies sometimes change, and the tactics frequently change. And I really kind of keep that to heart, and I made sure I stayed at the strategic and the principle based level, and I hire help for a lot of the tactical stuff that changes. And even if you try to stay, like yesterday, I have an assistant that I used to work with when I was marketing director at a different company. He messaged me because he was asking for help because the Facebook pay-per-click ad interface changed again over the weekend. And that's like at the tactical level, his day is really spent trying to get caught up with the new tactics of it. But for me, where I'm doing now, I'm like, oh, really? Like I'm already working with an agency, but that's their concern, not my concern, because I'm operating with them at the strategic level and the principle-based level. But if I didn't have the right mindset, if I didn't have just the stuff we're talking about, if I had this overnight success ideal, if I just didn't have a good solid foundation, it'd just be so easy to get swept away when something small changes.
I really like what you said. Could you repeat the thing that Dan said? Because that is gold.
Oh, what Dan said, the principles never change, the strategies sometimes change, and the tactics frequently change. and
Yeah.
that and that's where we're at now, where a lot of these people, they put out these $1,000 courses, and it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that's because the tactics have changed. And then I really liked, his name was Christopher, I wish I knew his last name, but he was saying skill set, mindset, and environment. And I just think that those, I'm like, yeah, even this call we're talking about, it's, education to develop your skill set. Environment can be what kind of, like, where do you live? It can also be the people you surround yourself with. And then the mindset, like if you go into things with the wrong mindset, if you're trying to squeeze people for dollars, if you're just trying to make sales and hope your customers don't call you, like
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. It's
Yeah,
just
let's talk about that because here's something unique. I think everything I've said, I know it's sound. People may say, I know this, I've heard this before. All right, let's talk about some things you haven't heard about before. I'm sure everybody's heard of Pinterest,
right,
right?
right,
That right. Some people use it for marketing. I think in certain, niches, it's a good marketing channel.
right.
Um, and it's a big business. Those guys are making money, and they're getting millions of dollars in investors, and it's they're going to have a big payday someday when they have their IPO. Do you know how they got started?
No, how do they get started?
Okay, and this by the way, this is state of the art Silicon Valley high end startup wisdom. They did not buy ads to get people to come to look at Pinterest. They went to cafes and chatted people up one on one, showed them their interface, and asked their opinion. Let them play with it and ask their opinion.
That is
That,
awesome.
that's how they built their customer base. And the state of the art in Silicon Valley, these companies that go from zero to $1 billion, and where people
Right,
are cashing out with $1 billion through 2 or 3 years, the state of the art is get 100 customers and make them super happy.
right, right,
Then
right.
then think about the marketing and the this and the that. How radically different is that than what things how people are taught on the certain elements of the internet marketing world?
I love that. That is
Yeah.
so awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's just it counts so much when the numbers are small, when the groups are small. Because if you can't scale it if you can't achieve your goal on a small scale, if you can't keep a small group of people happy, how are you gonna have a big group of people happy? Like, how are you gonna take care of a larger group? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
And
so
and
awesome.
in order to make 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 people happy, You really need to drill down and focus on making 10 or 100 people happy.
Yeah.
It's really, and this runs counter to a lot of the advice you'll hear in the internet. Everybody's about, oh, well, that's not scalable. Going to cafes and talking to people isn't scalable. Yeah, well,
Well, yeah, but it's like the old direct mail days. Claude Hopkins saying that, before they'd write a sales letter, they'd knock on 100 doors and speak to 100 prospects. I think that's just, it's not even as necessarily it has to do with being scalable. It's just getting it right.
exactly. And then once that's right, then you can pour the advertising on. But right now, the model seems to be throw up any old thing, and here's 10 scammy ways to get traffic and sell people stuff that may or may not be good, and laugh all the way to the bank. No,
Yeah,
hey, let's face it. Every one of us has a devilish side that, ooh, that sounds really good. But when you wake up and look at reality, you're like, no, that's really not the right way to go. And that's not. And by the way, that's not where the money is. Who's making more money than Pinterest? Who's making more money than Facebook? Facebook is now a giant, and it's like, we think of it as this sort of monolithic thing. Facebook was a couple of dudes trying to create an online system for their college. I don't
yep,
know. I don't know how many people know the Facebook story. Maybe you've seen the movie, but this is a really important thing to focus on and think about every day.
yep.
the biggest One of the biggest forces in the internet world today, the owner I think is worth $23 billion. I mean, it's just insane what the guy did. All he wanted to do was get it right for his, a couple of thousand people at his university. That was his
Yep,
sole goal,
yep,
and he rolled it out very, very unambitiously. His worked for his college. Then he said, well, there's other colleges in the area. Why don't I add them?
hmm,
That worked. And then he scaled it up to 100 colleges. Then he did nationwide. And as late as 2005, which was only 9 years ago, his position was it was going to be a college only thing. He wasn't going to
hmm,
expand it. So this idea of sitting in your market, getting deep into, and this, by the way, this was the big theme at, if you did, anybody listening to this that wasn't able to go to the Titans of Direct Response, I assume Daryl is giving you a report on it. If not, Daryl, I hope you do. I hope you
yeah.
spend,
I'm definitely going to.
yeah, spend an hour or two or three or 10 or a month uh, just talking about the things that went down at that event.
Yeah.
And, just I'll give a really quick thumbnail. We had the absolute best copywriter of the last 50 years.
Hmm.
We had clearly one of the very top radio advertisers who's ever lived.
Hmm.
Clearly the top TV advertiser who's ever lived. Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, four copywriters that make over $500,000 a year, just writing copy and doing nothing else. They don't even have businesses.
Hmm.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I probably, Joe Sugarman, who, the Blue Blocker genius, who also had one of the best direct mail catalogs ever.
Yep.
Um, so we had all those guys, and every one of them, without exception, said the same thing. It's all about knowing your market intimately. And the only way you can know your market intimately is to engage with them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it any other way. That's why people say go into a business that you know. You know, don't Someone says, oh, there's a lot of money in mortgage applications. Well, all right, yeah, maybe there is, but what do you know? Do you know anything about that industry at all? Um, yeah, maybe you can mechanically crank out money generating mortgage applications. Uh, but how far is that going to take you if your depth of knowledge is thin? You
Well,
know?
it's the difference between building something that kind of makes a little bit of money versus something that has, like, I don't know, the chance to for sustainability and like a real business, a hobby versus a business, I think is what it is. That's something Lloyd used to always say. If you treat your business like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. But if you treat your business like a business, it will pay you like a business. And so I think that's really the difference. If you're just looking to set up some sort of quick little make money fast, I'm just gonna drive traffic, get applications filled out, and sell the applications. All right, and you can make a couple of bucks on that. But is that really something you can stand on? Is that like a Tesla Motors? Is that like an Apple? It doesn't even have to be these giant conglomerates, but is that just like, even the family diner that's been in your neighborhood for 50 years? I mean, is that going to have that sort of sustainability, that sort of breadth to it? Is it, or is it just kind of like that thing that, that store that opened up and was there for a couple of months and then now it's just a vacant lot again? I think that's kind of the difference. Ken, something that came up that I wanted to ask you about when you were talking is I've heard different people say different things. Some people say you want to create the product first, and you want to have like we mentioned here, you want to have 5 people in it that they're so happy, so like they're just overjoyed with your product. And I've heard from other people that you should get your sales process up first because until you have sales, there's no point in the product, and that you really want to have that sales process down and be refining that, and you can just shut the traffic off, then make sure your people are happy, and then go back to turning that on. I mean, this is kind of a chicken or the egg question. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first, the sales and marketing, or the product? And
Great. This is a really good question. If you look at, and people are maybe going to go, oh no, I really don't want to hear this. But if you look at the people that have been really successful, let's take even the narrow internet marketing world, without even going to beyond. Invariably, without exception, it started not with the product or not with the marketing. It started with an in-depth study and understanding of the market that they were going to go into. See, this is what's missing. You asked me what's missing, what people are tripping over, and we alluded to it just a minute ago. The more you know about the marketplace you're in, the customers, their their needs, their desires, their fears, their worries. That's where you've got to start. Knowing that. Let me give you an example. I won't name any names, but there was a guy who he's huge in the dating, how to date or how to pick up chicks or whatever it is, marketplace, and huge guy. Everybody would recognize his name instantly. He spent years as a kind of twerpy lurker. I mean, and you know what? I only say that not to put him down, but maybe to encourage everybody. It's like he did not start as some super slick, sophisticated guy.
right.
And I got the tapes to prove it. He was kind of a twerp. Still, I guess they. And he just and you know what? Had he created a product at that point in his evolution, oh my God, it would have been a disaster.
It would have blown up in his face.
And yeah, he might have been able to craft a super slick sales process, but all he would have been doing is quickly spreading the word that he was a twerp.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like if you want to blow a company up really fast, I mean, blow it up in a negative way, like destroy a company, take an inferior product and market the hell out of it.
Right.
And I've seen in the internet marketing education space over the last 20 years, I've seen people come and people go.
Right.
And people, suddenly they're the hottest thing that ever happened, and then 3 years later, everybody hates them.
Yeah.
And that's an example of somebody getting their sales process down with their products not so good.
Right.
So if you want to ask me where you start, it's market selection. Mm-hmm. Actually, let me talk about the 3 phases of business, right? And then we'll go back to this and fill it out. 3 phases of business. Phase number 1. Wandering, lost, and aimless in the desert.
Right.
Phase number 2, hair on fire, racing to getting critical mass as fast as possible. Step number 3, improving your processes and systems, and to the extent that you can, taking yourself out of the business and employing others to do the actual operation of the business as much as in every level that you can do that. A lot of people that, and the idea of, other people are going to do the work for me. Oh, that sounds so great. And then, in fact, there are people that sell courses on how to, do all that stuff. But until you have a business and there's revenue coming in, that's kind of premature knowledge. If you've got zero income and you don't have a business, you don't have a business idea, learning how to delegate and learning how to get 10,000 other people working for you is kind of like, it's like saying, well, here's how you build a plane and fly to Europe. Well, that's, I guess I could build it, but I don't have a plane,
Right.
Now, other people, so what's missing is the reality that there is for everybody, for the founders of Facebook, for the founders of Google, for the founders of Apple, for Ken McCarthy, for for Daryl, for whoever draws a breath on this planet, there is going to be a period of time that you have to go through where you're wandering, lost in the desert, trying to figure it out. And the idea that you can be in that lost in the desert state and craft a good product and a winning sales system, I think is the cart before the horse. What you really need to do is say, okay, what market do I feel personally interested in? And here's why it's so important that you're interested in it. You're going to be living with this thing for a long time. I mean, the idea that you're going to learn a few things and make enough money to not have to work anymore for the rest of your life in a year, good luck with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if anybody can find me somebody that's done that, bring them to me. There is no such person.
Yeah.
Success comes from longevity, and I'm not saying you have to wait 20 years to get the fruits of success. But I'm saying that the real it doesn't happen in a month. It doesn't happen even in a year. So find a niche, an area that you love, right? Then run it through a filter. Be practical. I always say if you want to sell a product to left-handed lesbians from Lithuania, that's probably too narrow a marketplace. Right? So be practical. There probably are a few of them. But are you going to be able to find them economically? And then once you find them, there aren't that many, and you're gonna maybe there's a lot of them. I don't know, but I mean, I'm just saying you just have to be practical.
Right.
So so for example, let's use the Facebook example. By the way, that happened in 2005.
Yeah,
There's a whole lot of hotshot internet gurus that were around in 2005
Yep.
who could have put together a Facebook-like platform.
Yep.
But they didn't. Only one guy did it. And why did he do it? Because he was into it.
Yeah.
He was into it. Why is Lloyd so unbelievably successful in training martial artists?
Because he's so into it. He's so passionate.
Oh my God!
He's so
And
passionate.
I know he's got a lot of other niches, sort of mechanical things where he'll hire someone to create content and they'll buy traffic and they make money. But believe me, the lion's share, I think he'd let all those things go tomorrow if he had to choose between all his peripheral activities and his core. I think, I have no doubt he would hold on to his core business, and his core business flows out of his personal interests.
Right.
I had a great conversation with a fellow. I wish I could remember his name. He's really the godfather of all creative real estate investing. I mean, he was doing all the no money down for real in the 60s. And basically all the people that teach it now, they're just, riding his coattails. He invented all this stuff. And I was talking with him, and he was talking about his kids. And I said, well, I guess you advise your kids to go, because he knew everything about real estate. I mean, he's a guy that literally could walk into a town and a week later own $1 million worth of property without having taken a penny out of his own pocket.
Right.
He could really do that. And by the way he'd do it, he would knock on doors.
Really?
He would go into a neighborhood and knock. He would go door to door and go. He had no money when he started.
Right.
And so he'd say, I'm thinking of moving to this neighborhood. Can you tell me if there are any houses for sale?
Really? Is that it? And just to start that conversation with the owner.
And what would happen is sometimes the owner would go, oh my God, here's somebody I can unload this house on. Or they'd say, oh yeah, well my cousin's thinking of selling her house. Right. Or yeah, there's a guy around the corner, he's got a house for sale. So he would do like 100 doors a day, a lot of work.
Yep.
But within about a week, he would have all kinds of, because it's all about deal flow. This is a really important concept. If you're looking at one deal a year, you're probably not going to find many good deals.
Right.
If you're looking at 10, 20 deals a day, the law of large numbers says you're going to come up with some amazing gems.
Right.
So anyway, this was the kind of intelligence this guy had. He just made things happen in the real estate world. He knew how to, work on cash flows and discount mortgages. And I mean, just anything related to real estate. This guy was, so I thought when I asked him, well, you're going to encourage your kids to go into real estate. He said, oh, no, I encourage them to go into something they love because, and here's the key. The only way you're going to get good enough at it to make money is if you spend a lot of time on it. And the only way you're going to spend a lot of time on it is if you love it. Right? Now, you would think that he'd say, oh, yeah, I want my kids to learn real estate because they can, learn all the tricks of the trade from me. What could be a better deal? Right. No, this is a very practical, intelligent guy. So this wandering in the wilderness phase, is about finding that area that you are both very interested in and has some obvious commercial potential. However, sometimes people make vast fortunes by going into things that have no commercial potential. There was no commercial potential for personal computers when Apple opened their doors.
Right.
Their sole goal in life, their sole calculation was this. There are 50,000 ham radio operators. That means there are probably around 50,000 people in the United States crazy enough to want to hand make their own computer from our parts. So when you ask, so this grand strategy and all this kind of stuff, it never starts on day one.
Right.
And what did they do? And here, this goes full circle. What was, Steve Wozniak was the guy that made the first Apple computer. And he's a billionaire today. And he hasn't worked in 30 years. He got his stock and he said, I'm done. And that took about 5 years, by the way. I mean, they were very lucky. But what was Steve Wozniak's original goal? His original goal was to make a computer that was good enough, a personal computer, that was good enough to impress the 50 members of the Homebrew Computing Club.
That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, right? So, we're talking about a lot of stuff, and I think it's stuff that needs to be said and needs to be in your mind, So, wandering in the wilderness. So, that's where I would start, acknowledging, hey, I'm in the wilderness here. And you know what? I'm just like Moses and every other person that ever wandered in the wilderness. We all wander in the wilderness till we find our way. But what you're looking for is a market that you can care about. And it doesn't matter that you're the world's greatest authority in that market.
Right.
There are many people that have done well in a market that started as a novice amateur, and their process of learning, because they were learners themselves, they were excellent at serving other learners.
Right.
So going back, I'm sorry I keep going on and on, but this is really important. So going back to the how to pick up girls deal. So this guy was sort of a dweeb for years, but he listened to all the conferences and he read all the discussion boards and he absorbed all the information and he studied and he reached out and he chatted with some of the experts, and bit by bit he got more and more knowledgeable. And then finally, after all this period of wandering in the wilderness, he developed his own useful and powerful perspective. He wrote an ebook. Short, it wasn't a big deal. Actually, you know what? It wasn't even an ebook. It was a discussion board post. Now, I'm talking about a guy that says, I don't know what he really makes, but he says he does 10 million a year now. So we're not talking about some modest success story. We're talking about a grand slam success story. His business started the following way. He hung out on the discussion boards. He tried his best to figure everything out, starting from sub-zero knowledge. Bit by bit, he learned. After wandering around the wilderness for a while, he got his own uniquely powerful and useful perspective. And one day he posted his own manifesto on a heavily used discussion board. And because he was coming from depth, it wasn't a cut and paste bogus ebook, because he was coming from depth and he was saying something new and he was saying something real and he was saying something that resonated with the audience because he knew the audience, because he dwelt with the audience for months and years, that post caught fire in that marketplace. It went wild. It went wild. He took that post, tidied it up, turned it into an ebook, and that is the basis of a business that I don't know what it really does, but definitely does seven figures a year every year like clockwork and has done so for years and years and years. So that's my answer to your question of do you get the product right or do you get the sales process right first?
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. No, I think that's well said. I think it's to try and summarize for people. It comes from a basis of really being in your market and understanding the potholes and the problems. That's the analogy you always use, Ken, about walking in your market, walking through it, and really sitting in it so you can see where the gaps are, where's the potholes, where's the uneven road, and then really identifying that. And it sounds like here, just almost doing like a test of some well thought out deep content that maybe isn't the whole enchilada, but it's still right, it's still a great contribution on the level of knowledge there, and then just really just following people's response and tailoring it to better suit the need that you're trying to solve. And then obviously you can't scale if you don't have a marketing and sales process, so that has to come into it as well. So it sounds like they're kind of both happen at the same time, but it's really has to be deep rooted in the basis of understanding your market, of understanding the problems, understanding the solutions that have been there before you, and you just not trying to think you can step in and create something and make a couple $1 million and go kick it on a beach, but actually being from a place of wanting to serve others, provide value, and just being there. Like I don't, it seems like such an anomaly, but it's even on online. It's so easy to be like a troll or in the shadows. Like actually to be present in a space with people. To yeah, I think.
Well, like let's really look at the internet marketing. One of the big names, and I won't mention his name, but one of the big names of internet marketing, his marketing method, and he had a lot of money from some other source, was to over a period of 2 to 3 years, before he ever opened his mouth publicly, he attended like 50 to 70 internet marketing seminars.
Right.
He went to every single seminar, networked like crazy, which not made him personal contacts, but it also gave him a feel for the marketplace. And he very over time he saw how he saw the holes in the road, he saw the bumps in the road, and he saw what he could bring to the market that would be a solution for that market, so that when he came out with his product, it was a fit. It wasn't a guess. It was a well crafted fit. And the markets are hungry for novelty, huh? They're hungry for the new, and they're hungry for the improved. Now, I'm not saying throw new and improved on the
I got my
box.
new headline.
Right. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about really new and really improved. And when we're talking about new and improved, we're really talking about that road repair model of marketing. You don't have to build, the new road. You don't have to pave the road with diamonds. People are very happy if you simply get the pothole out of the road. You're a hero.
Yep.
If people are bumping their axle, scraping their axles on a bump, on a lump in the road, and you get rid of that lump, that bump,
Yep.
you're a hero. So we're not talking about like being Einstein here, but we are talking about intimate knowledge. Practical, intimate, real knowledge, not fantasy, not make believe, not what I think would be good, but that's why I say walk the road. Get out of your car. Don't drive down the highway at 60 miles an hour and think you understand that road. You really don't understand the condition of the road when you get out of the car and walk the road. Every bump is going to be obvious. Every hole is going to be obvious. And your goal as a marketer, if you really want to make a splash in a market, is get to know those bumps and holes intimately, and then create a product that fills the holes and removes the bumps. Because and here's what, in both these cases that I've given, it's so important when you emerge, when you launch, that you're credible.
Yep.
Not that yes, I guess you can trick a lot of people into buying a lot. You can railroad and stampede a lot of unknowledgeable people into buying a ton of stuff that may or may not be good. I guess you could learn how to do that. But the guys that make the real money don't go that route.
Right.
What they do is they take the time to bring something truly unique, truly valuable, truly worthwhile to the marketplace. And then what happens when you show up with something really good, people latch onto you.
Yep.
If I go to your house for dinner, right, and you make an amazing meal, I assume that if I come back to your house, I'm going to have another amazing meal,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
just logic, right?
Right.
If I come to your house and the food's crap, or a restaurant, let's use a restaurant as an example. If I go to a restaurant and the food looks horrible and it tastes kind of, not so good,
Hmm.
I'm just going to assume that, this is not a place I'm going to put on my rounds. I'm not coming back here. Um,
Right.
why do we think the internet world is any different?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, these are things, kind of deep things that you want to have in your mind when you're plotting your strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's just a lot of really good content to this call. I feel like we can make a bunch of ebooks and PDFs out of just transcribing
We
it.
could, the mindset. The warrior mindset. There's a warrior forums that might get confusing, but um,
Yeah,
no offense to the warrior forum, but are those guys warriors? I mean, why do they call themselves the
yeah,
warrior
I
forum?
don't know.
I don't really
I don't
understand.
know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that came from either.
Warrior is a very serious term to me. That's very serious.
It is. It's
That's
good,
about as serious as you can get in this world. Um,
which isn't necessarily everyone on the Warrior forum,
yeah.
even though they mean well. So,
I mean, well, and there's good stuff to be learned from everywhere. But there's an example, like whatever the forum is named. You don't want to hang out in one forum. You don't want to be a member of one tight little club.
right.
You always want to be saying, are there other forums? Are there other people? Is there a bigger game here? Is there a broader network?
Hmm.
Are there other books I could be reading? Are there other people I could be following? And so, if we take this full circle, I have this copywriting course that I have. At the very beginning of the copywriting course, I always say I can tell where somebody's at as a copywriter by asking who are your heroes,
Mm,
you know, and that applies in internet marketing too. Who are your heroes?
yep.
And if you tell me it's these 3 or 4 guys that just hang out together and never, talk about anybody else, I'm going to say, wow, you know what, you have a problem because you're plugged in to a environment that is deliberately limiting your education.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's almost to bring it back to the music analogy, but if you said you were interested in a certain genre of music and I was like, "Oh yeah, who are your favorite artists?" and the only people you recited are the people that are being played on the radio right now, then I know that obviously your knowledge is very, very shallow versus if you were really a fan of that, you would know the people who come before it and all the big names and what they were famous for and why and how it's helped the evolution and how well, you would even see parts of the old school in the new people that have come forward because all we are is just history repeating just like every day where I'm just a recycle of my habits from yesterday. It's just year after year, generation after generation, we're all simply little bits of history repeating, just hopefully becoming a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser, a little bit sharper, a little bit better. Um, but it doesn't take a lot. I mean, it's yeah, just small changes can swing big doors. Even in the evolution, like you're saying in the product, you don't need to build a whole new road. You just need to be the same road, but without that pothole.
Right, the roads, and by the way, if we're talking about what market should I go into, that's why the road analogy I think is helpful. You don't build the road, the road's there. How does that apply to marketing? Well, you don't build the market. The market's there. Like there's already guys that want to pick up girls. There's already people that want to make money on the internet. There's already people that want to be better fighters. You pretty much never want to go into, and even in that guy who went to Mexico for 6 years, there is a world of people that are interested in international cuisine and want to try new things. So that even though it was a smaller market back in the 80s, it was an existing market.
Right.
So that's rule number one. Is there a road?
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's no road, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have enough time or money in 1,000 lifetimes to build that road.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Facebook. I'm using Facebook for some reason a lot, but he didn't build the road. There was already Harvard University.
Yep.
There were already students at Harvard University. There
Right.
were already students at Harvard University who were very curious about each other and wanted to know more about each other and wanted to be able to communicate amongst each other. The road existed. In fact, I don't know how many people know this, but it depends on what, if you went to college or not, depending on what college you went to. But Harvard has a literal printed Facebook. It's called the Facebook.
Mm.
Um, And it's a book that you would get when you were an undergrad, and it would have all of your classmates in it, their face, the high school they went to, and where they're from.
Right.
That was the Facebook. So there's another example of the guy, he didn't build the road.
That's right.
He saw lumps and holes and he filled them with software in his case.
Yep.
So I think I've just given you a multi-trillion dollar
Yeah.
insight into how the world really works. Make sure there's a road, get out of your car, walk that road, look for the holes, look for the bumps, create a product that removes the holes or fills the holes and removes the bumps. And the cool thing about this is, like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know how to fill a hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, and
you see the problem, you fix it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Just let people tell you what's missing. That was like Michael Fishman. He gave the advice of looking at the negative reviews on Amazon to help figure out, and that's just one strategy, and it's not the end all be all. But that's exactly what you're saying. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. People will tell you. It'll just be there, and then really, I think it just comes down to just maybe beginning with the end in mind. So you want to think in terms of how can I scale it? Because obviously in Pinterest, their goal was never to scale it through coffee shops, and cafes, but they knew that they needed that. They needed real, live, breathing people. They needed to make what we talked about in the beginning. They needed to make a small group of people, be able to make a small group of people happy in person and in real life before they could scale it and have that user interface be used by tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people all over the world that they can't actually sit down and talk through using their site. So I think that that's really instructive, those kind of pieces there. And something that I picked up from Michael Gerber is the rule of 10,000, I guess. And so that's basically it. I mean, even with the Facebook, it's hard to scale that. I mean, it's a printed book and you can, but to collect all the photos and all that. So that's where I guess what Zuckerberg, what his contribution was trying to find a way to make it easier to do and scalable. And so just keeping that piece in mind. I guess it's it's an art and science because you need to have the small group intimate interaction to make sure you're getting it right. But then you also want to make sure that you're laying a foundation that can really grow and scale. And then you also need to have the actual problem, the hole in the market that you're solving. And that has to have the ability to scale as well. Because if you find a hole in the road, but there's only 10 people, like you say, you've got, I don't know, tennis players for whatever reason. I forget what your example was, but the left-handed lesbian.
It's from Lithuania.
Yeah, from wherever. But if there's only 10 people, then you can't scale that. Then there's no scale to that, right? So even if you're ready and you can handle 10,000 of them, if there aren't 10,000 of them, again, you use the analogy. If you're trying to swim in a pool with no water, I mean, you're just going to end up getting hurt. So I think it's this art and dance of those kind of components of understanding the market, of having real people that you're serving, and then also understanding that eventually you do want to roll and scale this out. And so keeping that in mind. So however you are serving that small group of people, making sure that it can translate into a way, shape, or form you are able to scale it to serve tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of customers.
And this is to answer your original question. This is where you start with these considerations, and the technical things you pick up as you go along. The idea that, if I accumulate tons and tons of technical know-how, a business will flow from that. Not at all. You can be the most. I mean, I know people like this. They know more about internet marketing than I do. They know more about specific techniques than I do.
Right.
But they don't have a business.
Right. Well, it's because tomorrow something could roll in, and now that business is made redundant.
Well, also they never reached out into a marketplace and served a marketplace. They know they're like a what is it? A consultant is like a guy who's knows 100 lovemaking positions but can't get a date Saturday night. It's like that's great that you know all this stuff, but come on, you gotta go out and do some stuff eventually,
Right.
So and be encouraged. Everybody should be encouraged that everybody that has a successful business started out as a complete dimwit. I did. I didn't have a clue what I was doing when I first got started. Zuckerberg, I just heard this story, it cracked me up. He incorporated his company originally in Florida. That's the,
Mm.
and I don't know if you know anything about incorporation, that's like the dumbest possible state
State to incorporate your company
corporate
in.
a business in, unless you have to. You know, if you're a local Florida business, you kind of have to. But he didn't have to, and I don't even know why he did it. It was the most boneheaded, amateurish, idiotic mistake you could possibly make. He made another mistake that cost him billions of dollars. He had a part. He had some partners, and some of them stuck with him. But he gave his partners shares without having any uh, quid pro quo. In other words, he didn't say you have to stay with me for 4 years for these shares to kick in.
Oh.
So there's a dude living in Singapore now with about $10 billion in the bank who worked about 2 years on Facebook and just skedaddled. Now that is something that he could have avoided.
Yeah.
And now you talk about mistakes. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a $10 billion mistake.
Yep.
And you know what? So if you think, oh, I've got to be as smart as Mark Zuckerberg, well, no, well, you have to be as tenacious
Yeah.
as Mark Zuckerberg.
Yep.
None of us have to be smart. We have to be tenacious, and we have to be constantly in motion. And I'm not saying be a shark, because shark has sort of negative connotations. But one of the things that sharks do very well is they keep moving.
Mm.
Sharks don't lay at the bottom of the ocean and wait for prey to come.
Right.
They're moving all the time. They're always in motion. And so, that's one thing to emulate.
That's
Yeah,
really good one. Yeah. Nope, I think that's right. And it just keep applying so many, like, keep moving, keep applying solutions, keep progressing. Because it's just like with your Mark Zuckerberg example, you can't know, like, you're inevitably going to make mistakes. You hope, and that's part of why you educate yourself and you surround yourself with people smarter than you, so you can try to avoid those mistakes. But ultimately, you just have to accept the fact that mistakes will be made, but your only alternative is to do nothing, and that is death. I mean, that's the antithesis of growth. So you have to keep moving forward, and just like we talked about here, but try and start small. And I think this kind of goes back to a copywriting tenet, but that's where Claude Hopkins, let the thousands tell you what the millions will do. Let the small group of customers tell you how the large group of customers will react. So instead of trying to scale so big so fast and being really focused on quote unquote sucking money out of a marketplace, you focus first on getting customers, really serving them, and then growing with what works.
exactly, exactly. And I think we actually covered some pretty deep things in this call,
Oh yeah.
and I recommend that people maybe loop this thing and just listen to it over and over.
Yeah.
Honestly, I want to, I'm not just saying that. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think we covered. I already know I want to go. I've been alternating from taking notes to like, oh, I should be listening. Like because I was like, wow, that was really profound. I'm taking notes for myself, even in the margin of my notes, like my interview questions here. So, no, there's definitely a ton of value. Ken, there always is. Every time we talk, or every time I hear from you or any of your audios, there's so much value. It's why I knew I wanted to interview you. So, I really do appreciate coming and do the call. Let's talk a little bit about what you have going on right now. What's happening in Ken's world? What are you working on? What are you passionate about these days?
well, I was doing large events. They started out as small events, but they became large events. By the way, my first internet marketing seminar, before the famous one in '94, I think we had 12 guys.
Hmm.
And Bettina made lunch, for all of us. That was the first one. Then we got up to 400 or 500 people at a clip, and that we did our last one in 2011.
Yep.
We named it the system in 2002. Before that, we didn't have a name. We just got together and did things. And we started the system, and so 2011 was the last one. Putting on big events is a big deal. It's a good thing to do. Requires a lot of infrastructure and good management and all that kind of thing. But it's a very powerful thing to do. If you're looking for a way to distinguish yourself in a market, and you can figure out how to get all the players in that market in one place at the same time, I mean, that'll put you on the map faster than 10,000, great emails and any AdWords campaign and any SEO. I mean, it puts you to the top of the class really fast. But I did pretty well. I'm pretty financially conservative. I didn't go out and buy a Maserati or whatever it is you're supposed to do when you make money. I just stacked it up, and at 2011, I guess, which was the last one, or 2010, I looked at everything and said, I really don't have to work anymore if I don't want to. So I decided, 2011 is going to be the last big event. But as you can see, I really like marketing. I really like helping people with these issues. And so I still have my system club, and the system club used to be just graduates of the system seminar. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a secret club. I didn't advertise it. The idea is if you'd gone through one of my trainings, then you were prepared to really be a good system club member. And I want good members. I just don't want numbers. I want smart people in the club, or educated people, or people who have their heads screwed on right. You may not know much, but if your head's screwed on right, I'd rather have you than a smart guy who's got his head screwed on wrong. So we had the system club. And that's been on the internet side and the internet education side of things. And I've got a lot of different projects going on in a whole bunch of areas that have nothing to do with the internet. But on the internet education side, that's where my energy is focused. And with that group, we do 3 events every month via telephone. One of them is called Tech Talk. And it fills, I think, a huge gap in our market. There's a lot of great tools in internet marketing, but how do you hear about them? Some of the very, very, very best tools don't advertise. How they manage to grow, it really is kind of a mystery to me. But there's a great model of make the tool free, give it away, and then have upgrades for people that need greater volume or greater features or whatever, and that model seems to work pretty well. We also, then we have the other model of somebody takes a so-so tool and then gets 1 million people to promote it, and everybody spends $10,000 on it. I mean, I don't like that model at all. I don't see how that serves internet marketers. So Tech Talk is an antidote to that. Tech Talk, we go over all the great internet marketing tools that are truly great, some of which are free, some of which cost or cost very little. So that's Tech Talk. That's every month. We review a different class of tools. The other thing we do is called Second Saturday, and that's where I take existing businesses, which we really haven't addressed. What's the challenge of an existing business? But I work with existing businesses or people that have a business idea and want to evaluate it with me. And I take one member and we just spend an hour or more on their stuff and figure out how to make it better. And I won't be falsely modest here. Those are amazing sessions, and they're high. There's like a high wire act. I have to produce. They're showing me their stuff for the first time, and in that hour, I have to come up with ways to radically improve and transform what they're doing. And so far, I would put those calls up against anything out there. I mean, they're really interesting calls, and they're tricky to do because every business is different. Everybody has their own set of capacities and skills and talents and resources, and everybody's in their own unique market. And I have to, figure out, okay, how do we take all these things and make them work for this person? Yeah. And anybody who's a member of the club is eligible to be a Second Saturday client. And you get, just an hour or more of my very best thinking, and everybody gets to listen to the calls. And if you're smart, you really want to hear about the challenges that other businesses are facing and how they solve them, how they address them, because you can often learn a great deal from that. Then the third thing we do every month is we have what I call a master class, where I go out, and you were a masterclass guest, where I go out and find, really accomplished people, either in internet marketing, or it could just be marketing in general, or it could be business in general. For example, 9 years ago, I had the, I'm trying to draw a blank on his name, the 80-20 guy. Richard
Koch, yep.
Koch. So, 9 years ago, I had that guy as a guest when that book first came out. So if people had been listening, they would have had the benefit of the 80-20 stuff that Perry is teaching today. They would have had it 9 years ago. So we reach beyond and this is the theme of even our call today. I don't just stick in the narrow internet marketing ghetto, you know, and just focus only on like three guys.
Yep.
I'm really interested in everybody in internet marketing. I'm interested in everybody in marketing. I'm interested in everybody in business. And I'm interested in everybody who's doing anything worthwhile or valuable because we can always learn from that and apply it to the internet.
Yeah, and you always find really good, top quality caliber people. Like he also did an interview with the Ginsu knife guys. That was like, what was that? That was like a huge, 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 like 50, no bees, but $50 million a year business. I think just selling steak
Oh,
knives you could buy at the grocery store.
well, it was so big that Warren Buffett bought the company from them.
Yeah,
No, it was a big deal. I believe they sold $1 billion worth of those knives.
that's so crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and
how you find and connect with these people, I have no idea. But those masterclass calls are awesome.
well, you know what I do? I read widely. You know, like we talked about at the beginning of this call. When I see somebody interesting, I say, "Hey, look, I've got this show. I'd love to have you on it." You know, would you believe I'm the only guy that ever interviewed the Ginsu knife guys about their business?
What?
Oh no,
That is
one other institution did that. Harvard Business School.
which is so crazy because it's like yeah.
Let's. I'm glad this is an important point. There was a time when you could have walked into Mark Zuckerberg's house in Palo Alto and been an early shareholder or employee.
Yep.
There's a guy named Peter Thiel that did that in 2005. He put up 100 grand for 10% of Facebook.
Wow.
Why did he? Why was he? And he may say, "Well, I don't have 100 grand," but get the principle. He put up 100 grand, and it paid him $10 billion.
Yep.
I'll do that. I'll do that all day.
All day, every day. Yeah.
But let me say something. There was no guard at the door saying you can't come in and give me $100,000.
Yep.
Obviously, there wasn't because
He did.
Zuckerberg was very happy to get that $100,000 back then, and he wasn't hiding. He wasn't an obscure, unknown character. He'd already built this big college, university. It was successful on the college level. It was very well known. All the college kids knew about it.
Yep.
You know. So and then the guy that created Napster, who is now behind Spotify. Oh, and also, by the way, was a Facebook founder and also cashed out with about a billion. There was a time when he had a rough patch. Napster, you know, hit some really hard spots, and he actually has had a lot of rough patches in his life. And there have been times when you could have just knocked on his door and been a friend, and gotten his ear and added him to your network. You know, even after he was world famous because of Napster, because then Napster crashed and burned, and you know it really affected him very negatively. So this idea that networking is hard and you know, oh my God, you know, the effort, you know, well, I don't know, is it really hard or are you lazy?
Yeah, but it's like
or is your vision short?
I always say that when people say things are hard, I'm like, compared to what? Like, really? Like, it's life. Like, that's something that's a pet peeve of mine. I sometimes don't show up when people complain, yeah, but it's difficult, it's hard. I mean, we all struggle, we all procrastinate, we all are dilatory. But it's like, compared to what? Like living life is hard. You have to, you know, it's survival. Like, what are you going to compare it to? Non-life, non-existence. So it's just a matter of just, you know, just making a decision and a commitment that, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just like you said, a lot of these people, you might think that they're inapproachable, but it sounds like a lot of these people, they're not behind steel bars, they're not behind a giant wall. You know, there's just this indifference of people that just couldn't care to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's too late to knock on Mark Zuckerberg's door. I mean, now there is an iron bar,
Right.
but there were years where you could have just been part of that.
Yep.
You know, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that's why, you know, we see very often that immigrants come to North America, whether it's to Canada or to the United States, and some of them are incredibly industrious. They build successful businesses at a higher rate than native-born people.
Yep.
And, you know, why is that? Well, think about it. You know, you're in India or Pakistan or Russia or Bulgaria or wherever the heck you are.
Yep.
You leave your country.
Yep.
You leave all your friends. You leave all your support networks.
Yep.
You leave your native language. You're kind of like a Viking who's burned his boat on the shore. You know, the Vikings
Yep.
used to do that. They would land, and to make sure that they didn't retreat, the captains would burn the boats on the beach.
Yep.
The guys would have to win, win or die,
Yep.
and so they're in that position. They know how hard life is. They know the consequences to go back to Bulgaria.
Yep.
I think there's a funny saying, and I heard this out in Silicon Valley. It's hard to wake up at 5 in the morning when you go to sleep in silk pajamas.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Adversity makes men, luxury makes monsters. I think that that's so true.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So,
And I do this, and why are we driven? And this is kind of an interesting thing. I never like I was talking with somebody literally yesterday about this, and she said, "Wow, you've done so much," and I'm like, I feel like I haven't done anything, I feel like I gotta like do more, And she's like, "You're kidding," I'm going, "No, I really feel that way." In other words, you gotta you can't rest on wherever you're sitting, and you just have to like blank slate, blank canvas, new day. There's a great saying in Zen, and it's a very practical saying. A day of no working is a day of no eating.
hmm.
And too many of us, we do, as rough as things are, I guess, these days, they're still pretty soft. If you want to see hard, go to like a rural slum in the third world.
Yeah.
And you've traveled, you've seen the
Oh
world.
yeah. Yep.
I would actually, you know what? You want to light a fire under your ass, everybody? Go to a third world country and see what it's like when
Yep.
you don't have it together.
Yep.
And see how far a dollar will take you when you earn one, and see how easy it is for us to do business in this country with this beautiful infrastructure and this huge marketplace of relatively affluent people. I mean, we're shooting fish in a barrel. I mean,
Yeah.
compared to the rest of the world.
Yep. Yep. No, we have it so good, and there's so much wealth. Even yeah, there's. I could go on for days here. I mean, people that are wealthy in America, they're part of the top echelon in the world, and it doesn't even take that much to get there. So, um, but I think it does come down to even just the mindset part. So it's almost because it's so easy, some people get lazy, and they just want it all in that in the pill essentially. Where's that
Oh, you know
where's
what?
that get rich pill?
And boy, if you sell one, everyone would buy it. But something that's really important when I started even getting involved in the internet in '93 and '94, I already had a business. It was a pretty good business. It was not bad.
Hmm.
And so the way I worked was I would spend about 8 hours a day on that business. I'd have dinner, and then I'd work another 8 hours on my internet stuff.
Mm.
And I did that for at least a year and a half before the internet stuff started to get enough traction that I could sort of start fading down the other, involvement with the other business. So
Mm.
that's a 16-hour day. Now, you can't do that forever,
Nope.
nor should you do that forever. But that's the second phase. We talked about wandering in the wilderness. The
Yep.
second phase is when you get your direction and you know the market and you know what you're trying to accomplish, then you cease to be a normal human being.
Yep.
you you Corey Rudel, great Canadian, great internet marketer. He had his desk at the end of his bed, so he literally would wake up in his pajamas, walk to his desk, and get to work.
Yep.
In the early years, obviously that's not something that you can sustain, but this is an important thing. The idea that you can get there without a period of just complete hair on fire, around the clock, not hanging out with the buddies, not watching TV. Just this is it. This is what you're doing. You're eating, drinking, breathing, and working.
Yep.
That is kind of a necessary rite of passage that you kind of need to get the critical mass to have a business that you can actually live on.
And even if you're doing all the right things, you have the same thing as well. Like it's not that you're doing something wrong if you get put in that case. Even if you have all the automation, all the tools, I mean, if you're really committed to it, you're going to be like that regardless because even with all the automation and the scalability and it's all digital delivery or whatever your business is, there's still going to be problems. You're still going to be wanting to fan the flames and when it's on and you like that's you need to just eat more, sleep less, and just get the work done and grow this thing while you can. um
Yeah, because the winds blow and winds die down, and if you're lucky enough to catch a wind, wow, stay up all night and keep the sails up. And think about, I mean, not the selling sales, but the sales of the ship. Think about the Silicon Valley guys. They've got all the technical prowess in the universe. I mean, they'll have like, on-site staffs of coders.
Yep.
They're working like that.
Yep.
In the critical mass stage, in phase two. Phase one is figuring out what the heck you want to do. Phase two is you found what you want to do. You're getting a good feedback from the market. You see what to build and what to market. Now is when you go nuts.
Yep. And
how long do you do that? You do that until there's enough money coming in that you can start hiring people to take over pieces of it. Because well, the ultimate goal, and Daryl, you're really good at this, is you've got the people in India doing development. You've got the assistant in Pakistan managing your meetings and all that kind of thing. Now, that's something that you can't do on day one of your business.
Right.
You need revenue coming in to do that.
Right.
But that's the third stage, which is getting people to do the not to diminish anybody's efforts, but it's grunt work. It's work that any one of thousands of people on the planet can do.
Right.
So that you're free to think and to continue to research and to continue to network and to continue to draw in new ideas and reform them into things that you can use to take the business further. Yep. which is what we really get paid for. We get paid for thinking. I know it scares people, but we get paid for thinking and executing.
Yep. Yeah.
Not for coding, not for transcribing interviews, not for setting up autoresponders, or Facebook campaigns. That is a commodity you can hire. But what you can't hire is the drive and the kind of mind that's always absorbing new information and transforming it into action.
Right. So well said, Ken. Thank you. That's awesome. Well, this has been quite the interview. We've covered so much. It's been nonstop, just all this meat. Ken, I want to appreciate you for your time today. If people want to reach out and get in touch with you, they can go to thesystemclub.com. Is there any other way they can reach you that you'd like to mention as well?
It's the most efficient way. I kind of, like this is how I met you.
Yep.
And because there's everybody, you're at different positions in your career at different points. So when you're starting, you have a lot of time, more time, let's say, or the ratio of people that want to talk to you versus the number of people you can talk to is kind of manageable when you're getting started.
Right.
In fact, it might even be negative. You might wish there were more people that wanted. But now I'm in a phase where if I open the floodgates, I'd have 10,000 people emailing me.
Yep.
So. I'll be frank, the System Club is kind of a filter between who's taking this seriously and who's not.
Yep.
If you're a club member, I'll do anything for you, that I can,
Yep.
But if you're not a club member, it's like, gee, if you're not serious enough to be a club member, then
yeah.
What is this?
It's not that much money either. I owe so much of my training education to the System Club, so that's definitely why I wanted to have you on here, and I fully endorse it by all means. I mean, there's just so much value and content there, just in people to connect with, years and years and years of training and education and stuff that, the article might be, or the recording might be 3 years old, 5 years old, but no one's still doing it today. I mean, when I was with my martial arts school, I was dominating my local industry with stuff that was like 2-3 years old in your archive. I mean, it's so worth it. So, okay. All right, well, let's do that. So if anyone wants to connect with you, they can reach out to you at thesystemclub.com. Ken, thank you so much for coming on this call today. I so appreciate your time. And we'll stay tuned and we'll stay in touch.
Great. Thanks a lot. You can't have a good interview without a great interviewer.
Thank you, Ken.